In this documentary, we will journey from the modern world to the ancient world as we explore the new 7 wonders of the world, full of mysteries and secrets. When the new 7 wonders were identified in 2007, there was no definite order. For this reason, I have ranked them from the newest wonder to the oldest ancient wonder. Before examining the wonders of the world, let's start by taking a look at how the new 7 wonders were determined. The fact that of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, only the pyramids of Giza in Egypt remained standing raised the question, should the 7 wonders of the world be updated? Taking the pulse of the public, author Bernard Weber decided to establish a foundation to identify the new 7 wonders. With the advent of the Internet in the early 2000s, it would be possible to hold a worldwide vote. So, the new 7 Wonders Foundation and website were established in Switzerland in 2000. Then, 200 existing monuments that could potentially become the new 7 wonders of the world were identified, and voting was launched in 2001. People from all over the world participated in the voting, both through the website and by telephone. By 2006, the 200 monuments had been narrowed down to the final 21, and a total of 100 million votes were cast, leading to the final 7 wonders in 2007. The final result was announced on the night of an event organized in Lisbon. However, since one person could vote more than once, it was not a fair choice. For this reason, there was no ranking of the monument with the most votes or the least votes. The ranking was based on the year of construction, from new to old. UNESCO, the World Heritage Committee, has already announced that it does not support the new 7 wonders because it is not a fair and scientific choice. But still, people have yet to stop embracing the new 7 wonders. The new 7 wonders of the world respectively: Christ the Redeemer in Brazil, completed in 1931, the Taj Mahal in India, finished in 1643, Machu Picchu, an ancient city in Peru founded in 1450, Chichen Itza, the famous pyramid in Mexico, was built in 600. The Colosseum is a Roman masterpiece in Italy, completed in 1980. Petra is another ancient city in Jordan dating back to 312 BC, and the Great Wall of China, with its mile-long structure completed in 700 BC, was determined as. The Pyramids of Giza, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, was given honorary status and ranked 8th. Now, let's continue by examining the 7th-ranked Christ the Redeemer in Brazil. One of the most visited and largest statues in the world. An icon of South America and Brazil. The newest of the new 7 wonders of the world. Christ the Redeemer, originally called Cristo Redentor because Portuguese is the official language in Brazil, was voted one of the 7 wonders of the world by popular vote. Christ the Redeemer rises on the Corcovado Mountain in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil's 2nd largest city and main port city, famous for its carnivals, and can be seen from all over the city. The statue is not only a wonder, but also a symbol of both the city and the Brazilian nation. So, why was Christ the Redeemer built? In the 1850s, Brazil was an empire headed by King Pedro II. Pedro would also be the last ruler of the empire. Pedro Maria Boss, a Vincentian priest, proposed erecting a Christian monument on Mount Corcovado to honor the king's daughter, Princess Isabel. Because Isabel advocated the abolition of slavery, she even helped to free many Brazilians from slavery, and Isabel's succession would have allowed her to realize this fully in the future. But before Isabel could rule, the empire ended under her father, Pedro II, and a republic was established. Church and state were separated. As a result, the priest's monument project to honor Princess Isabel was never approved. However, the basic idea of Christ the Redeemer was based on this project. In 1920, after 70 years, The Roman Catholic Archdiocese in the city again proposed the state, this time not as a Christian monument, but as a statue of Christ. Before the proposal was submitted, public approval was sought. During the week of the monument, donations and signatures were collected from the public. The signatures collected from the public were presented to the then-president Epitatio Pessoa in the form of a petition. It was emphasized that society had become godless and Christianity had been forgotten, especially after the First World War. This time, the president accepted the project proposal. On 4th April 1922, on the 100th anniversary of Brazil's independence from Portugal, the first cornerstone was laid in a grand ceremony. However, the final design of the monument had not yet been chosen. It was time to decide what kind of statue to design. That same year, a competition was organized. At first, the drawings of Jesus holding a cross in his right hand and the earth in his left hand were liked and accepted. Later, with the involvement of statue artisans, it was decided to create a statue of Jesus greeting people with open arms, which was seen as a more peaceful symbol. The church raised the funds for the statue as a donation. The sculptor Paul Landowski and engineers Silva Costa and Carlos Oswald designed the statue. Although the first foundation was laid in 1922, construction began in 1926, took 5 years, and was completed on October 12, 1931. So how much did Christ the Redeemer cost? How was it made? And how big is it? First of all, if we look at the statue's dimensions, the statue, which was completed in 1931, is 30 meters tall. The statue also stands on a square stone pedestal 8 meters high. Together with the pedestal, the statue reaches 38 meters in length. The width of its arms is just as long, 28 meters long, almost equal to the statue's height. The head of the statue alone is almost the height of 2 people with a height of 3 meters 75 centimeters. With an altitude of 710 meters, the statue on the slope of Corcovado Mountain reaches 748 meters above sea level. With these dimensions, it is the world's largest Art Deco-style sculpture. Before its construction, the monument was intended to be made of steel. However, it was decided that concrete would be more appropriate, and it was built in concrete. Although it looks like a flawless surface from a distance, the entire sculpture is covered with a mosaic of millions of triangular soapstone tiles. The reason for using soapstone was its durability and ease of use. When all the construction and cladding were completed, the net weight of the monument was 635 tons. Of course, the construction of such a large monument was also very costly. In 1931, when the statue was completed, it cost $250,000, according to the exchange rate at the time. Today, with today's inflation difference, this figure is equivalent to $5,300,000. Donations collected by the church covered the entire cost of the statue. It has been 93 years since the construction of Christ the Redeemer. During this time, the statue has been damaged several times, and some restorations have been carried out. On $10 February 2008, lightning struck the monument during a severe thunderstorm. The statue suffered some damage to its fingers, head, and especially the eyebrow area. In response, the government launched a large-scale restoration effort to repair these damages and replace the soapstone. On 17th January 2014, the monument was struck again by lightning and damaged. Even the finger on his right hand was dislocated. Again, a large-scale restoration had to be carried out. The soapstones were replaced, the internal ironwork was renewed, and the monument was made waterproof. During this restoration, some activists attacked the statue with paint. This action was considered a crime against the nation. Afterward, the activists expressed regret, apologized to all citizens, and surrendered to the police. A final restoration work was carried out between 2020-22 because it was deemed necessary. Again, some of the soapstones needed to be replaced. However, the quarry from which the original soapstones were brought had been closed due to exhaustion. For this reason, soapstone of the same color and quality was sought. With great care, the triangular soapstones closest to the original were found and replaced with the old ones. During this process, an estimated 5% of the statue's 6 million triangular soapstones, or 300,000, were replaced. Apart from these restorations, panoramic elevators and escalators were added in 2002 to facilitate access to the monument. Previously, people had to walk up hundreds of steps. In 2006, on the 75th anniversary of the monument, the Archbishop of Rio consecrated a chapel under the statue named after the Virgin Mary, the patron saint of Brazil, and Catholic citizens were allowed to perform baptisms and weddings there. Christ the Redeemer, the most visited structure in Rio de Janeiro, continues to welcome nearly 2 million local and foreign tourists every year. The crown of the Mughal Empire, India's symbol dedicated to love, the most dazzling wonder of the world. The monument, which has a name of Urdu origin, is written as the Taj Mahal in Indian and English but means crown of the palace, is located on the banks of the Yamuna River in Agra, Uttar Pradesh, India. Completed in 1643, it is a mausoleum and mosque reflecting the most beautiful architecture and artistic work of the Mughal Empire. In 1983, UNESCO listed it as a World Heritage Site, and in 2007, it was voted one of the new 7 wonders of the world by popular vote. In 2018, as a result of a decision taken by the Indian government, worship at the Taj Mahal was banned. So why was this monumental monument built? Ruling from 1628 to 1653, the Mughal Emperor Mirza Shahabuddin Muhammad Khurram, better known as Shah Jahan, built this monumental monument, the Taj Mahal, to perpetuate the memory of his beloved wife, Erkumen Banu Begum, or Mumtaz Mahal, who died on 17th of June 1631 during the birth of their 14th child, and to build a mausoleum where she could be buried. Shah Jahan was so much in love with Mumtaz Mahal that after the death of his wife, he stayed away from royal affairs for a week, did not listen to music for 2 years, and refrained from wearing flamboyant clothes. He started the construction of the Taj Mahal a year later in 1632. She also determined the location of the monument to be built. Before the construction of the Taj Mahal began in 1632, the land here belonged to Raja Jai Singh, a general of the Mughal Empire, and was located 1.6 kilometers from the city of Agra. When Shah Jahan himself was looking for the land with the most beautiful view and soil for his beloved wife Mumtaz Mahal, he liked the area where the Taj Mahal is located today, and Raja Jai donated this land to Shah Jahan. The Taj Mahal was then built here. The monument took a long time to complete. It was under construction for 11 years, from 1632 to 1643. More than 20,000 workers were employed from the Iranian region, the Ottoman Empire, and Europe. Calligraphers were brought from Baghdad, inlayers from Bukhara, dome masons from Istanbul, minaret makers from Samarkand, stone masons from Kandahar, and draftsmen from Shiraz. It was inaugurated with the first ceremony organized by Shah Jahan on the 12th anniversary of Mumtaz Mahal's death. For this reason, it is accepted that it was completed in 1643. However, the decoration work continued until 1648. In fact, when we include the outer land, an area of 17 hectares, we can say that its construction, together with landscaping works, lasted until 1653. It is known that Shah Jahan wanted to have another mausoleum built for himself in black marble opposite the Taj Mahal, which he had built in white marble on the bank of the river. But this wish was never realized when he was deposed by his son Aurangzeb in 1658 and imprisoned in Agra Fort. So, what kind of design and dimensions does the Taj Mahal have? The Taj Mahal dazzles with its design reflecting Indo-Islamic and Mughal architecture. The monument, which has various shapes and symbols on it, consists of white marble covered with precious stones. The white marble structure allows the moon and sunlight to reflect in different shades of color. The Taj Mahal was built under the leadership of Master Ahmad Lahori, the chief architect of the Mughal Empire's court, with the contribution of many artisans. Located in a courtyard 580 meters long and 305 meters wide, the main building of the mausoleum is centered on a pedestal 95.5 meters wide on each side and 6 meters high. Elegantly constructed 40-meter minarets rise at the four corners of the pedestal. The minarets were constructed by the architects of the period, tilted outwards in case of a possible toppling. The central building is an 8-sided structure with long sides of 57.3 meters. It has 4 large symmetrical doors and 24 balconies. The arched structure of the building rises 33 meters above the ground. The most striking feature of the mausoleum is, of course, the onion-shaped dome in the center. The 18.4-meter diameter dome is placed on a 12-meter cylindrical drum. When the 9.6-meter gilded finial on the dome is added, the total height of the monument reaches 73 meters. The gilded finial was originally made of gold, but was later replaced with a bronze one. 4 smaller domes rise at each corner of the main dome, again imitating it. The exterior of the entire building is decorated with various calligraphy and relief art made with precious stones. While the exterior design of the mausoleum structure is like this, when we enter the interior, we are greeted by walls decorated with precious stones. The interior, which is mainly decorated with agate, mother-of-pearl, and turquoise stones, is also decorated with emeralds, rubies, sapphires, diamonds, and large pearls. Under the main dome are the fake sarcophagi of Shah Jahan and his wife, Mumtaz Mahal. An 8-cornered marble curtain made of marble and decorated with fine workmanship surrounds the sarcophagi. Thanks to the enormous dome structure here, it has acoustics in such a way that every sound coming out of the human mouth reverberates 7 times. The real sarcophagi are located in the basement, directly below the fake ones. The real sarcophagus of Shah Jahan is wider and higher than Mumtaz Mahal's. When we step out of the monument again, we are greeted by a huge garden. 2 main roads and narrower roads connected to the main roads allow people to walk through the garden. Large pools are opposite the mausoleum, and small pools are to the left and right. These pools are intended to reflect the image of the monument in the water and offer visitors a visual feast. The garden, which has an area of 177,000 square meters, is an example of a Persian garden with its design structure. The part of the garden facing the Yamuna River is open, while the other 3 sides are surrounded by arched walls made of red sandstone. At the garden's main entrance is the main entrance building, which has a similar architecture to the mausoleum structure, but contrasts in color with its red sandstone construction. 2 more symmetrical buildings rise to the east and west. The eastern one, also made of red sandstone, was used as a mosque until recently. It was banned by the government in 2018. Of course, such a monumental monument had a very high cost. Today's estimates show that it was built with a budget of $80 million for 2024. Of course, today it has become a good source of income for India. The monument is visited by 3 to 4 million tourists a year. While its own citizens can enter for 60 cents, tourists from South Asian countries have to pay $6.50, and tourists from other countries have to pay $13. It is also forbidden to stay inside for more than 3 hours. If you stay more than 3 hours, you must pay a fine. The monument is closed on Fridays, but can be visited on other days of the week from sunrise in the morning until sunset in the evening. Night visits are limited at certain times of the year. Last but not least, the Taj Mahal has survived a series of dangers. First, in the 18th century, the city of Agra was invaded by the Bharatpur Jat ruler, and the valuable artifacts inside the mausoleum and the golden finial on the dome were looted. In the early 20th century, after the First World War, the Taj Mahal fell into disrepair and was restored by the British governor in 1908. At that time, India was under British colonial rule. During the Second World War, it was very likely to be bombed by airplane. For this reason, scaffolding was erected to hide the monument. It was also at risk during the Pakistan-India Wars in 1965 and 1971. By the late 20th century, the Taj Mahal's color began to turn yellow due to the high carbon emissions in the region. For this reason, strict emission rules were set over an area of 10,000 square kilometers. So much so that it is impossible to enter the area by car. You can reach the monument on foot or by electric bus. Apart from being one of the new 7 wonders of the world, the Taj Mahal symbolizes a famous love story and a garden of paradise. It reflects the power of the Mughal Empire and Shah Jahan. Today, it continues to rise and welcome visitors as a symbol of India. A religious and scientific center of the Incas. The ancient city of the wonders of the world is hidden on a mountain peak, Peru's most visited tourist paradise. Machu Picchu, one of the cities where the Inca Empire, one of the indigenous peoples of the Americas, once lived, is located 80 kilometers northwest of Cuzco, Peru, on the high Andes Mountains of the Urubamba Valley. The city is surrounded by the Urubamba River on 3 sides. The city is 450 meters above the river and 2,430 meters above sea level. The construction of Machu Picchu, which means Old Hill and is considered an ancient city, actually dates back to 1450 AD, not prehistory. The ancient city disappeared for a while and was forgotten by humanity for hundreds of years until its discovery by American explorer Hiram Bingham in 1911. Following its discovery, UNESCO listed it as a World Heritage Site in 1983, and in 2007 it was voted one of the new 7 wonders of the world in a worldwide vote. Why was Machu Picchu built on such a high mountain? Machu Picchu, one of the most important cities of the Inca Empire from 1438 until its disintegration in 1533 after the Spanish invasion, was founded in 1450 by the Inca Emperor Pachacuti Inca Yupanqui. However, thanks to radiocarbon dating studies conducted in 2021, it is thought that it may have been built sometime between 1420 and 1450. Detailed research on the ancient city has revealed that the emperor built Machu Picchu for religious ceremonies and astronomical research, and that only the elite lived there. Previously, it was thought that the city was the capital and that it was built so high to provide a protected structure. Machu Picchu was abandoned long before the Spanish invasion that ended the Incas. It is thought that this was because travelers who came to the continent before the invasion spread infectious diseases in the region, and the people living here had to leave the city because of these diseases. In addition, when the Spanish arrived in the Inca region, Machu Picchu had already been abandoned, so the city was never found by the invaders. Thus, the existence of the city was forgotten for about 400 years, and Machu Picchu has survived to the present day more intact than other Inca cities, because the Spaniards were burning down the cities they entered and carrying out a massacre. Moving on to how Machu Picchu was built and its design to build the city, the Incas turned the mountaintop into a plateau and terraced the land using stone trenches. Stone was the most useful material not only for terracing, but also for building houses, temples, and all other structures. The Incas managed to build an enormous city here with various carvings and shapes. When we look at Machu Picchu in general, we can say that it consists of 2 separate areas. The first is the western side, which consists of buildings placed around a square and built close to each other. The second is the eastern facade, which consists of many terraces where agriculture is practiced. When we look closer at the western facade, we first see the houses built close to the agricultural area. Stone walls surrounded the houses. Servants generally inhabited the dwellings here. Just below the dwellings are the Sun Temple and the building where rituals were performed, as well as the royal palace and the royal cemetery. A little further down the hillside is the building for prisoners. They used it for criminals and those who entered the city illegally. Next to it are the buildings for artisans and manufacturers. In the center is the main square, above which rises the Temple of the Three Windows where astronomical activities were carried out, the main temple, and the Intihuatana. At the end of the buildings is the Sacred Rock. The buildings were all designed according to the position of the stars and the sun. From the windows, they could watch the constellation of stars they had chosen or watch the sunrise and sunset thanks to the angle they adjusted. It is even thought that the sunstone, the Intihuatana, was designed by the Incas as an astronomical clock or calendar, so much so that at noon on November 1st and January 30th, the sun is almost directly above the stone and does not cast a shadow. On June 21st, the longest shadow falls on the south side, and on December 21st, a much shorter shadow falls on the north side. It is already known that indigenous peoples such as the Incas, Aztecs, and Mayans were scientifically advanced before the Spanish invasion. It is thought that about 750 people lived in the city when it was actively used. Most of them were servants, but the most important settlers were the clergy, who practiced rituals and astronomy. On the eastern side, a system of hundreds of terraces welcomes us. Although the city was sparsely populated, it was important to provide food, and especially fresh water. The upper terraces were designed to collect fresh water when it rained. The lower terraces were used for agricultural activity. The region's temperature of 20 to 23 degrees Celsius for 12 months, and the dense forests ensured that the city received abundant rainfall and the Incas had no water problems. However, since the area available for agriculture was only 12,000 square meters, the city still had to import food from outside the valley. In addition, the discovery of animal bones, which were found to not belong to the region during the excavations here, reveals that animal husbandry was also practiced in Machu Picchu. There is also a cemetery in the middle of the agricultural land where the servants were buried, and a guardhouse next to it to keep watch over the land. At the end where the buildings in the west meet the agricultural land in the east is the entrance gate, the only entrance to the city. A separate road leads to the mountain peak rising right next to the city. The Incas called this peak Huayna Picchu, or New Hill. They built smaller settlements on this hill. There is an interesting story about the discovery of Machu Picchu. I told you that the city was discovered in 1911 by the American explorer Hiram Bingham. But to find the city, Hiram told the locals that he was looking for the capital of the Incas, and the locals took him to Machu Picchu, so the locals knew the location of the city. Hiram also found the inscription Agustin Lizarraga 1902, written in charcoal on the wall of the Temple of the Three Windows, which was thought to belong to a Peruvian explorer and farmer. He wrote it down in his notes and even photographed it with his military escort. So he was not the first to discover the city, but by announcing to the world that he had found the capital of the Incas, and by making Machu Picchu known, he established himself as its discoverer. In fact, Hiram himself started the first excavation in the city in 1912. In 1912, 1914, and 1915, Hiram removed thousands of artifacts from Machu Picchu. Among them were ceramic vessels, silver statues, jewelry, and human bones. He said he took them all to Yale University, supposedly for 18 months, for further study. However, Yale kept all the artifacts until 2012. He claimed that Peru lacked the infrastructure and systems to protect the artifacts. For a time, Peru accused Yale of profiting from its cultural heritage. In response, Yale returned some of the artifacts in 2006, but continued to keep the rest. In 2007, a traveling exhibition, a new museum, and a research center began to be built in Cusco, Peru. Yale thus recognized Peru's ownership of all the objects. The remaining artifacts were fully returned to Peru in 2010 and 2012. In 1981, the Peruvian government declared the 326 square kilometers surrounding Machu Picchu a historic sanctuary. The aim was to protect the city, as well as the tropical vegetation with wildlife such as the Andean fox, puma, and spectacled bear. In 1983, UNESCO declared Machu Picchu a World Heritage Site, describing it as an absolute architectural masterpiece and a unique testimony to Inca civilization. Machu Picchu is one of Peru's biggest tourist attractions. Around 2 million tourists from all over the world come to visit the ancient city every year. To reach the city, you first have to take a train on a narrow-gauge railway and then climb 500 meters. A very small number of visitors prefer to walk 88 kilometers to reach the city without taking the train. During this hike, which takes 3 to 6 days, it is possible to see more different ruins of the Incas. For a while, it was proposed to build a cable car to facilitate transportation, but it was never approved because the tourist density would harm the city. You must also buy a €75 entrance ticket to visit the ancient city. A wonder of the world full of mysteries that amazed the Mayans. Pyramid where people were once sacrificed. Architectural monument built according to the calendar. Chichen Itza, the most perfect and most phenomenal of the dozens of pyramids built by the Mayans, is actually the name of an ancient city covering an area of 10 square kilometers in the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, where the Mayans lived between 400 and 1200. The pyramid we know as Chichen Itza, one of the new 7 wonders of the world, is called El Castillo, or the Castle, by the people of Mexico today. However, in the Mayan language, this pyramid was called Kukulkan. Kukulkan was one of the most important gods of the Mayans. Despite all these names, today the pyramid is better known by the name of the city, Chichen Itza. So what does Chichen Itza mean? Although Chichen Itza is actually written in Latin letters due to the Spanish occupation in the 16th century, it is pronounced the same as the Mayan language. The Mayans used hieroglyphic script to write their language. The word Chichen means mouth of the well. Itza was one of the Mayan tribes that once lived here. Chichen Itza literally means Itza, at the mouth of the well. This was one of the largest and most scientifically advanced cities of the Maya. When it was active, there were about 35,000 inhabitants. UNESCO included Chichen Itza, along with the entire city, on its list of World Heritage Sites in 1988. And in 2007, it was voted one of the new 7 wonders of the world by popular vote. Chichen Itza has many interesting aspects. One of them is that it is made up of pyramids built one on top of the other over time. The Mayans probably completed the first pyramid around 600 AD, and then, over the centuries, they made various additions and restorations to make it what it is today. So there was another pyramid inside the pyramid, 16 meters high, and the Kukulkan pyramid was built on top of this older pyramid. There was even a 20 meters deep water well in the pyramid's center, but the entrance to this water well has not yet been found. It is believed to be an entrance system leading to nearby caves. The primary purpose of the pyramid was to be a temple dedicated to the god Kukulkan, also known as the Feathered Serpent. There is a statue of Kukulkan at the top of the stairs in the north. In fact, this statue is positioned in such a way that on the equinoxes of March 21 and September 21, the days when day and night are equal, the light filtering down from the top of the pyramid merges with the head of Kukulkan. March 21, according to Mayan belief, is the day the god Kukulkan descended from the sky to the earth. On the equinoxes, 7 triangular lights are reflected and move up and down throughout the day, forming the silhouette of a snake reminiscent of Kukulkan. On these dates, thousands of people flock to Chichen Itza to see this phenomenon. Again, the sound of the Quetzal bird, considered sacred by the Mayans, echoes when hands are clapped inside the temple at the top. Researchers have confirmed the authenticity of this and admitted that the Mayans deliberately tuned the acoustics of the temple in this way, not by coincidence. However, after 2006, the government banned tourists from climbing the pyramid to prevent damage to the monument, so it is no longer possible to try. The link above provides more information about the god Kukulkan and Mayan mythology. Now, let's continue with the Chichen Itza pyramid. If we look at the dimensions and construction of the pyramid, apart from being a wonder of the world, Chichen Itza, which is an architectural wonder in terms of symmetry, has a terrace system with 9 equal steps on all 4 sides. The height of the terraces reaches 24 meters in total. When we add the 6-meter temple on the top step, the height of the pyramid reaches 30 meters. Each of the 4 sides at its base is equal to 55.3 meters wide. The entire pyramid is also built of limestone. On the 4 sides of the pyramid, there are 91 stairs. When we add up all the steps, we reach the number 364. When we add the temple platform at the top, we get the number 365. This shows that each step was actually placed according to the calendar calculation. Each step symbolizes a day of the year, and each surface of the pyramid symbolizes the 4 seasons. In addition, the shadow falling on these steps is different every day of the year. Thus, by looking at these shadows, the Mayans decided how to change the harvest, what to sow, and what to reap. In the temple at the top, various rituals and rites were organized by the priests. These rituals included human sacrifice. Although they were religiously savage, it is understood that the Mayans were scientifically much more advanced than Europeans at that time, especially in astronomy and calendar. After the Spanish invasion in the 16th century, Chichen Itza disappeared into the dust of history. In 1843, an explorer visited the ancient city for the first time, and in 1860, it was photographed for the first time. From the 1870s to 1926, archaeologists from America carried out many excavations, and all the artifacts in the city were unearthed one by one. However, all the portable artifacts were taken to America and exhibited at the Harvard University Museum. In 1926, the Mexican government accused America of theft, but it had given all the permits for the research. Therefore, America was not found guilty. There are other pyramids in Chichen Itza, similar to the Kukulkan pyramid, and almost as grand in architecture. Especially, the Osario pyramid is like a scaled-down version of Kukulkan. With 4 equal corners and 4 staircases, Osario consists of 7 terraces, with the temple at the top. The large Temple of Warriors and the smaller Temple of Tables, which stand side by side, are among the monuments rising in the city with their semi-pyramid appearance. Named after the cylindrical building on top of it, the Temple of the Observatory, also known as the Snail, is believed to have been built to follow astronomical events. Especially the Mayans are thought to have observed Venus here, because it is known that Venus is associated with the feathered snake Kukulkan. In fact, there is a structure called the Venus Platform, directly opposite the Kukulkan pyramid, and there are 2 Kukulkan statue heads on it. Apart from all these, there are many more temples in the city. Another important point of the city is the cenotes, or water wells. Even the bones of people who were sacrificed were found in these water wells formed by the collapse of limestone rocks and the emergence of underground water. In addition, the ball field where they play the game of cut-head ball, which is both a religious ritual and a recreational game for the Mayans, is also one of the places that attract the attention of tourists. Chichen Itza and all the other ancient cities of the Mayans generate enormous revenue for the Mexican government. Open 365 days a year, Chichen Itza welcomes between 2 and 3 million tourists a year. However, the entrance fee to the ancient city is expensive. If you want to go inside and see the wonder of the World Pyramid, you have to pay 65 euros. The gigantic arena where bloody gladiatorial fights were staged. The largest ancient amphitheater ever built. a world wonder of the Roman destination. Colosseo, in its original Italian name, and Colosseum in English, it rises in the center of Rome, Italy's most UNESCO World Heritage Site, just east of the Roman Forum. The Colosseum, which has an oval structure, is the largest amphitheater ever built and still standing in the world. In 1980, it was listed as a World Heritage Site, and in 2007, it was voted one of the new 7 wonders of the world in a worldwide vote. So who built this monumental monument, when and why? The first construction of the Colosseum was started in 72 by the Roman Emperor Vespasian, who ruled from 69 to 79. Vespasian wanted to restore Rome to its former glory and remind the world that Rome was still the mightiest empire. Where the theater was built, there was previously an artificial lake. The emperor started construction here by filling it in and creating a solid foundation 6 meters deep. In 70, he financed the construction with the spoils of the siege of Jerusalem. He even used captured Jews as laborers. But he left the design of the arena to Roman engineers, artists, painters, and decorators. By 79, 3 floors of the amphitheater were completed, but the emperor did not live to see the construction finished and the arena completed. His eldest son Titus, who succeeded him, continued the construction, completing the Colosseum in 80 and inaugurating it for public use with 100 days of games in which 9,000 wild animals were killed. After the death of Titus in 81, his brother Domitian took over the empire and made new additions to the Colosseum. These 3 emperors from the same family were called the Flavian dynasty, and they ruled Rome. For this reason, the Colosseum is also known as the Flavian Amphitheater. The origin of the name Colosseum is a bit complicated, but to put it simply, Colossos in Latin means colossal statue. In fact, opposite the amphitheater, there was a giant statue of the Emperor Nero, known as Colossus Neronis, meaning colossal statue of Nero. It is thought that the Latin word Colosseo, meaning gigantic amphitheater, was derived from these words. The main purpose of the Colosseum was to entertain the public with games and shows. In particular, the Colosseum hosted gladiatorial fights, where life and death battles were fought with swords and spears, and many other events were organized in the Colosseum. Many games, also called munera, were usually planned by wealthy families rather than the state. Sometimes they were held for religious ceremonies, sometimes to show family prestige and power. In addition to gladiatorial fights in which 2 warriors clashed to the death, fights pitting humans against animals were also very popular. Large numbers of animals were imported from Africa for this purpose. Gladiators could be free Romans, slaves, convicted criminals, or prisoners of war. If a gladiator won several fights, he had the right to ask the emperor for his freedom. As a sign of acceptance, the fighter received a wooden sword to represent his freedom and a promise that he would never have to fight again. The Colosseum was sometimes used as a place of execution. Prisoners were either thrown to the wild animals or burned alive in the theater in front of thousands of Romans. Christians captured before Rome converted to Christianity were also executed. It is believed that between 300,000 and 500,000 people died in the Colosseum as a result of centuries of fights and executions. Of course, there were not only fights and executions. Drama, acrobat, magician shows, and reenactments of famous battles were also performed to entertain the public. In fact, if there was a sea battle to be reenacted, the theater would be filled with water. Triumphal processions were also held in the Colosseum. One of the most famous of these was the festival organized in 107 AD to celebrate Trajan's success in Dacia. The festival lasted 123 days, with more than 10,000 gladiators and 11,000 animals fighting in the celebrations. After the conversion of Rome to Christianity, and especially after the fall of the Western Roman Empire, The Colosseum fell into serious disrepair and was used for different purposes. In the late 6th century, the arena was turned into a cemetery. Subsequently, the numerous vaulted spaces in the arches running beneath the seats were used as dwellings and workshops. In the 12th century, the Colosseum became the property of the Frangipane and Annibaldi families, was refunctionalized first as a church and then as a castle for these two families. In 1349, a major earthquake caused the south facade of the theater to collapse, leaving it in its present semi-ruined state. The stone fragments were used to build palaces, churches, and buildings in various parts of Rome. In the late 15th century, Pope Alexander VI authorized the use of the Colosseum as a quarry, and it continued to be used as a quarry for centuries. Although restoration work was carried out from time to time, the Colosseum, which had been neglected for more than 1,000 years, was finally restored to its present splendor, with a large-scale restoration work initiated by the Italian state in 1990 and costing $20 million. According to today's inflation difference, this figure corresponds to $50 million. If we look at the general structure and dimensions of the Colosseum, unlike classical Roman amphitheaters, which were built with the support of hillsides, the Colosseum was built on a flat ground using limestone, brick, concrete, and volcanic stone in a completely independent oval structure. 189 meters long and 156 meters wide, the enormous theater covers an area of 30,000 square meters. If you want to walk around the Colosseum, you have to walk 545 meters. When we look at the size of the outer walls consisting of 4 floors, we reach a height of 48 meters. When we go inside, we encounter the 88-meter by 55-meter dimensions of the arena where gladiator fights were held. It is estimated that 100,000 cubic meters of stone blocks were used to build the entire amphitheater, and thousands of iron clamps weighing the equivalent of 300 tons were prepared to hold the stone blocks together. The first 3 floors, with their arched structure, were built during the reign of Emperor Vespasian, and the attic with its small windows was built during the reign of his son Titus. They even built a retractable canopy, also known as a velarium, to protect the roof from the sun and rain. The arches on the 2nd and 3rd floors each had statues of gods and figures from Roman mythology. There were 80 staircase entrances, so that the theater could be filled and emptied quickly. 3 of these entrances were reserved for the elite and 1 for the emperor. Since each doorway and each staircase was numbered, people had no difficulty in finding their seats. They even developed a ticket system for this. According to a written text from 354 AD, the Colosseum could host 87,000 people, while modern estimates suggest that it had an audience capacity of 50,000. Even with this figure, it is the largest and most capacious ancient amphitheater in the world. At the north and south ends of the Colosseum, there were boxes reserved for the emperor. In addition to these boxes, there were areas reserved for senators. 1 level above the senators were the noble class and knights. Throughout the theater, the rich people occupied the lower level and the poor citizens occupied the upper level. During the reign of Emperor Domitian, another level was added to the top floor of the theater. This was for the ordinary poor, slaves, and women. They could either watch the plays standing or sit on upright wooden benches. Gravediggers, actors, and former gladiators were forbidden to enter the Colosseum to watch the games. Underneath the sand-covered arena where the performances took place, there was a system of tunnels through which the gladiators passed, and wild animals were kept in cages. These tunnels were even connected to the outside of the Colosseum. They even used a pulley-pulled elevator system to take the wild animals from these tunnels to the arena. Wild animals such as lions, tigers, bears, elephants, leopards, hippos, and bulls were part of most shows. But there were also events with defenseless animals like deer, ostriches, giraffes, and even whales. Hundreds of animals could be killed in just one day. Thanks to the nearby aqueducts, they had even developed a system that could fill the arena with water 1.5 meters high in a short time. Thus, sea battles with ships could be reenacted in the arena. The Roman Emperor Commodus, who reigned from 177 to 192, himself took part in some of the performances and gave hundreds of performances in the Colosseum. Italy welcomes an average of 60 million tourists a year. The majority of these tourists visit Rome, Italy's most touristic and largest destination. Along with many other places to visit in Rome, the number of people who buy a ticket and enter the Colosseum is about 6 million. You can visit the Colosseum, the Roman Forum, and Palatino Hill all day long with a €30 ticket. An ancient city full of mysteries carved into the rocks. The Red City dazzling with its Hellenistic architecture. The wonder of the world where Arab, Greek, Roman, and Byzantine cultures blend. The ancient city of Petra is located on the Arabian Peninsula, north of the Red Sea and south of Jordan, near the Gulf of Aqaba, 3 kilometers west of Wadi Musa. Famous for its rock carvings and waterway architecture, Petra was built by the Nabateans in the 4th century to create a trading center. Petra, which is actually a Greek word, means rock. The Nabateans called this city they built Rakhmu. It is also known that the city was called the City of Roses because of the color of the sandstone, which is unique to the region. In 1985, UNESCO listed Petra as a World Heritage Site and described it as one of the most valuable cultural assets of the human cultural heritage. In 2007, the entire city was named one of the new 7 wonders of the world by popular vote. If we look at the deep-rooted history of Petra, first of all, traces of human life were found in the region where Petra is located even in the 7000 BC, that is, in the Neolithic age. Again, in the Egyptian records written in the 1300s BC, people living in the region were mentioned. In the 700s BC, the Edomites, who traded wine, olive oil, and wood, were mentioned in the region. By the 4th century BC, we know that the Nabateans, a Bedouin tribe living a nomadic life in the desert, settled in the region and established a great state by building the city of Petra and making it their capital, as Antigonus, one of Alexander the Great's generals, organized expeditions to the region. However, we do not know the exact date of Petra's foundation. Since the ancient historian Siculus wrote about these campaigns in 312 BC, we accept its foundation as 312 BC. After 4 centuries, Petra became part of the Roman Empire when the region was conquered in 106 AD. Administered as a province, the Arabian Peninsula was called Arabia Petraea, meaning Rocky Arabia. Although the Nabateans were now extinct, Petra continued to flourish under Roman rule. In 363, the city was severely damaged by a major earthquake, and with the division of Rome, the city fell under the rule of Eastern Rome, Byzantium, after which the city's splendor began to decline. Still, it was one of the Byzantine capitals in the east, and many churches were built in the city. However, after the rise of Islam, Byzantium had to withdraw from the region. Petra gradually lost its importance during the rule of Islamic states in the region and was completely abandoned under the Mamluks. It had now become an ancient city, abandoned and forgotten for centuries. In 1812, the fluent Arabic-speaking Swiss traveler Johann Ludwig Burckhardt, under the pseudonym Sheikh Ibrahim ibn Abdullah, heard stories about an ancient city in Jordan, then part of the Ottoman Empire, where the tomb of Aaron, brother of Moses, was located, and came to explore. At an altitude of 1,350 meters on Mount Hor, he found the tomb said to be that of Aaron. This tomb was located 3.5 kilometers east of the ancient city of Petra. Continuing his trek, the traveler discovered the Nabatean city of Petra centuries later and introduced it to Europe. Following this discovery, it became the destination for a number of archaeologists from all over the world until the early 2000s, and many excavations were carried out to restore it to its current splendor. Let's take a closer look at Petra. The land on which Petra was built does not actually have any water source. The climate is generally arid and hot. It never rains in summer. But despite these conditions, the Nabateans found a way to live here. They built many dams and carved out rocks, especially on the mountain tops, and managed to store water in these hollows during the winter when it rained, and to turn the desert sand into fertile agricultural land with the water channels they created. It is estimated that about 20,000 people lived in Petra at its peak. Although they were of Arab nationality, the Nabateans had adopted Greek culture. For this reason, the architectural design of the city they built had a Hellenistic appearance. Specifically built during the reign of the Nabatean king Aretas Philopatris IV, who ruled between 9 BC and 40 AD, Al-Khazna, or the Treasury in English, is the most beautiful example of Hellenistic architecture built by the Nabateans at the entrance to the city, and perhaps the most important monument in the selection of Petra as one of the new 7 wonders of the world. To reach the city of Petra and its entrance, Al-Khazna, you have to pass through the Sikh, a narrow passage also known as the Sikhet, which is 1.2 kilometers long, narrowing at times to 3 meters, and between 90 and 180 meters high. This passage is the main entrance to Petra and is also known as Baba Sikh, or the Gate to the Sikh. Al-Khazna welcomes us at the entrance with its dazzling architecture. Unlike the royal tombs in the city, Al-Khazna is thought to have been used as a treasure chamber, as its name suggests. The enormous structure, carved out of sandstone rock, is the most visited point in Jordan, with its 24-meter-wide and 37-meter-high magnificence. According to legend, after Moses' crossing of the Red Sea, the Pharaoh of Egypt and some of his soldiers escaped the closure of the Red Sea, and Pharaoh magically created Al-Khazna to provide a safe haven for his treasure, which he carried with him, and then went after Moses again. Nearly 2,000 years have passed since Al-Khazna was built, and the sculptures on it, including figures from Greek mythology, have eroded over time. When we enter the interior, behind the magnificent exterior, we are greeted by 3 rooms, 1 large and 2 small, with a total volume of 2,000 cubic meters. Another prominent architectural wonder of Petra is El Deir, 48 meters wide and 47 meters high, which was thought to have been built for religious purposes. It is also known as the monastery because it was used as a monastery during the Byzantine period. Contrary to the flamboyant exterior, which was also carved out of the rock, the interior is a simple square and consists of a single room. El Deir is the 2nd most visited point and the biggest monument in Petra, and continues to maintain its splendor. Another place to visit is the city's amphitheater. The theater, which can host about 8,500 people, is known to have been the scene of gladiator fights during the Roman period, as well as various play performances. The next point is the royal tombs located directly opposite the theater. The tomb structure, which also includes magnificent rock carvings, consists of 4 sections: the palace tomb, Corinthian tomb, silk tomb, and urn tomb rise side by side, respectively. Apart from all these, Petra has dozens of other monuments to visit. Petra is Jordan's most visited tourist destination, with around 1 million tourists visiting the site every year. The Jordanian government's income from tourism accounts for almost 20% of its gross national product. Entrance tickets to Petra are quite expensive. If you want to visit Petra for the day, you have to pay 50 Jordanian dinars. This means paying approximately $70. There are packages of 55 dinars for a 2-day visit and 60 dinars for a 3-day visit. A massive wall that is long enough to encircle half the circumference of the Earth. The Great Wall that took more than 2,000 years to build. A wonder of the world built against Turkish and Mongol raids. Originally known in Chinese as the Wall 10,000 Chinese miles long, or simply the Long Wall, but later called the Great Wall, this defensive structure is known to us as the Great Wall of China. Its construction continued for centuries to prevent the invasions of various Turkic tribes, especially the Great Han Empire from the Eurasian steppes, as well as the Mongols. The first fortifications were completed around 700 BC, and new additions were made until 1644 AD. In 1987, the Great Wall of China was included in the UNESCO World Heritage List and put under protection. Contrary to popular belief, the Great Wall is not a single line, but dozens of parallel and independent lines built by different dynasties over more than 2,000 years. The most well-known sections today are the walls built by the Ming Dynasty between 1368 and 1644. If we were to connect the entire Great Wall end to end into a single line, we would create a massive defensive line, 21,196 kilometers long, including the moats and rivers connected to the Great Wall. This is more than half the circumference of the Earth. The Great Wall of China was not only intended to prevent invasions, it also had important purposes such as protecting borders, preventing possible migrations, controlling trade, controlling and taxing the Silk Road. In fact, the defensive features of the Great Wall enabled the establishment of watchtowers, soldier barracks, and garrison stations. It was also possible to communicate by sending signals quickly through smoke or fire, and the road along the Great Wall could be used as a transportation corridor. For these purposes, the Great Wall was built from three basic components: gates, watchtowers, and walls. The passes served as gates at critical points, especially at the points where the Silk Road passed or where the city entrances and exits were made. Watchtowers were built at regular intervals and communicated by fire, smoke, flag, or sound. The inside of the towers were built to accommodate soldiers. To prevent invasions, walls of at least 4 and at most 10 meters in height were built between the watchtowers and the gates. The earliest walls of the Great Wall were a mixture of wood, gravel, and earth, strong enough to withstand attacks by petty dynasties, using simple weapons such as swords and spears. Built on the plains and not very high, these walls were not very difficult to overcome. However, the abundance of stone in the mountains made the walls built later on mountain ranges stronger. Very few of these ancient walls, the first to be built of both earth and stone, have survived to the present day. The most spectacular and sturdiest walls, we can even call them fortifications, were built by the Ming Dynasty in the 14th century, especially against Mongol invasions. The use of bricks and stones instead of the rammed earth used in the old walls, and the fact that they were built much higher and wider, made the Great Wall of China built by the Ming Dynasty more durable, and these walls have survived to the present day. From the initial construction in 1368, the Ming Dynasty built 6,259 kilometers of fortifications with 25,000 watchtowers by 1644. Add to this the ditches, hills, and rivers connected to the fortifications, and you have 8,850 kilometers of defenses. The Manchu, who continued to live in an ethnic region we know today as Manchuria, succeeded in overcoming the Great Wall in 1644 and overthrew the Ming Dynasty. After this date, no new wall was built again, and the construction of the Great Wall of China stopped. There are several important points where you can visit the Great Wall. The first of these is Yumen Pass, one of the oldest points of the Great Wall. This was an important passage for the control of the Silk Road. It was built by the Han Dynasty around 200 BC. Another point to visit later is the westernmost Jiayu Gorge, which belongs to the wall first built by the Ming Dynasty in medieval times. The walls here appear to be 11 meters high, built of a mixture of stone and rammed earth. It is possible to see the magnificent towers of Chinese architecture at both ends of the gate. This section of the Great Wall was built in 1372 to protect against Timur's attacks. Yanmen Pass, a mountain pass, is also a must-see. The pass was first built around 300 BC, but it took its final form in 1374 during the Ming Dynasty. The walls here have an average height of 4 meters and were built against Turkish raids from Eurasia. The most visited and iconic section of the Great Wall is located in the town of Badaling in Beijing. Built in 1504 by the Ming Dynasty, it is possible to walk along the walls. This was the first section of the Great Wall to be opened for tourism. Another mountain pass through the valley is the Juyong Pass. Built in 1342, it is located close to the city of Beijing. The walls here rise up to 8 meters high. In the center of the gorge is the gateway called the Cloud Platform. Another iconic site to visit is the section known as Jinshanling in Luanping County. The height of the walls here varies between 5 and 8 meters. Another section of the Great Wall close to the city of Beijing is Mutianyu. The 7 to 8.5 meter high walls here were built to protect the city and the imperial tombs. Initial construction began in the mid-6th century, but it was finalized in 1569. This is also one of the places where watchtowers were built at the most frequent intervals. Finally, a must-see is the Shanhai Gorge, which joins the Bohai Sea in the east. It was built to control the sea and prevent incursions from the north. The last point where the wall, which can rise up to 14 meters, meets the sea, is called the Old Dragon's Head and is a visual feast. While these sections of the Great Wall have been restored and better preserved, the remaining kilometers are in ruins. The dilapidated sections were sometimes used to construct different buildings and sometimes destroyed for mining activities. Stones with inscriptions on them have even been sold on the black market. A myth in popular culture is that the Great Wall of China can be seen from space. We can see that this myth is completely untrue by the following example. Trying to look at the Great Wall of China from the moon is equivalent to trying to look at a human hair from 3 kilometers away. However, if you look from a distance of about 160 to 320 kilometers in low Earth orbit in the atmosphere without going into space, and if you know where to look at the same time, it is possible to see the Great Wall of China. The Great Wall continues to welcome more than 10 million tourists every year, making it one of the most visited tourist attractions in the world. There are 5 separate entry points for tourists, especially close to the capital Beijing. Entrance tickets are about $10, but if you include transportation to and from Beijing, the cost is $20 or $30. For the continuation of new documentaries, I ask you not to forget to like, comment, and subscribe. You can also support HERODOTUS channel more by joining the channel.